y'all? Welcome to another episode of the Independent Living Podcast. This is where we talk with some of the most successful independent creators, explore their businesses, figure out exactly how they became successful so that you can apply certain things to your journey as well. And this episode is brought to you by Two Lost, the best music distributor out there. So make sure you use the promo code DAME. You can get 3 free months of music distribution. If you're using another distributor, just use the promo code, try it out, explore it, see what features are there, see if you like it, give it a shot. The artist that I have here today is actually a Two Lost user. I got my guy Jev in the building. Jev, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Thanks for having me once again.
Nah, man, my pleasure, my pleasure. So I have to admit that I was not even familiar with your music, I would say, until about 2 months ago. And
Wow.
then I listened to some stuff. I was like, oh, this guy, okay. I got to know who your influences are. I got to know who your influences are because the music is fire. You got I'm super skillful, but who are some of your influences?
Man, it starts so it depends because I listen to like a lot of rap music in terms of just like the different genres inside rap. So
Mhm.
for me it's Wu-Tang, a lot of Outkast, a lot of J. Cole, Kendrick. But then I go underground too with just like a producer, so like Jay Dilla, just how he plays around with sounds and everything. And then we have Kanye, obviously, Common, Mos Def. I just like to take from like a little bit from everyone and just kind of like make my own vibe. But yeah, those are kind of like my influences. Lauryn Hill, there's another Biggie. Yeah.
So I didn't know exactly who it was going to be, but I knew it was going to be a lot of artists from that era.
Yeah.
Um, just listening to the music, I knew it was going to be a lot of artists from that era. So that's super dope, man. So just how are you feeling about things right now? Just as the industry, how it is in terms of how things are these days with streaming and things like, how are you feeling about just, where you're at in your career and how the industry is?
The way I feel like a lot of artists are realizing that we're businesses and not necessarily like artists. So I feel like a lot of artists are coming to terms with that, and a lot of people are kind of like taking back their power, and we're teaming up with like people like Two Lost, teaming up with other like distribution services, United Masters and stuff. So I feel like a lot of artists that are coming into the game have a more business mindset more than a artistic mindset. So as for me, I had that realization back in 2020 when the pandemic happened, and I started to see a lot of like my favorite artists, not complain, but they started to express like, yo, they can't release music right now. They're not really making any revenue because touring is off. Everyone's stuck inside, so they had to find different ways to come to like generate revenue. So I saw Travis Scott with the Fortnite thing. That's how he was doing his thing. I saw a bunch of people lean into like YouTube. We saw Tory Lanez with the whole IG lives and everything that was going on. So I just had to like sit back and kind of like analyze everything. And from then on, I just had a more business mindset and a more business approach to everything in terms of just like how I do music. So it was I have to learn how to make cover arts. I just be more independent and just have more control over my career.
Yeah, so I just spoke with Nic D, and he referred to it as skill stacking. So
Mm,
just acquiring the skills necessary so that you can move, and you don't really need that many other people
yes,
to,
sir.
to do what you need to do. So in
Yeah,
terms of where you're at now, what does your team currently look like? Who do you
yeah.
have on?
Yeah, for sure. For the longest time, it was just me in terms of just like learning everything. At a certain point, it was just me making the beats. I kind of let that go because that was taking way too much time. But right now, it's me and my manager. Shout out to Corey. So it's me. I'm coming up with like the ideas for like the cover arts, the videos, and stuff like that. And then Corey's helping me on like the admin side and just like other things that I might be missing because like I don't know everything. So we're just kind of like working together and just kind of coming up with like our own, little infrastructure.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that we do really well is that if we are like missing something or if we like identify a problem, we try and find like the people that can like, fill in that gap. So we don't necessarily like bring other people on our team as much, but we kind of like pay for hire and just because, those type of things. But it's kind of me and him right now. Hopefully, we get to grow it in like the next year or so as we keep growing like the Korean stuff. But right now, it's just me and him.
If you could just snap your fingers and like add a particular role to the team, like what would you say you needed, or what could be useful for you right now?
Right now. Oh, I
Yeah.
forgot to mention also my lawyer Lisa. So it's kind of three of us.
Okay.
But if I have my finger and say to add someone, it would probably be like a social media content manager type of situation. I feel
Yeah.
like content is like super important. So just having someone that's like dedicated to finding ideas, going through my analytics, seeing what's working, and all those type of stuff. I feel like that would help because right now it's me, and it does take a lot of time because content is like super important.
Mm-hmm.
So having someone that's kind of like dedicated to like social media would like completely help and would just make everything so much easier.
Dope. When did this music journey start? Like, when did you start making music, and then when did you like start taking it like super serious?
I started making music 2012. I was around like 12 years old. That was just kind of like making music for like friends and like people at school, and just kind of just vibing out. This was around the time I remember because it's Good Kid, Man CD dropped that year, and I was like, you know what? Let me get into this bag. I always loved music, but I never got into like recording it. But once I started recording it, like I fell in love with it like very like passionately because I realized I love making things from like scratch, coming up with the ideas, the concept, and like building like a song. But that's when I started. When I started taking it seriously, I had two phases. So I thought I took it seriously in high school, but like looking back, I don't think I took it as serious. So I'm gonna say I took it seriously in 2019. That's when I started to like really put money into stuff, like investing in like a DistroKid and uploading my music on like Spotify instead of like SoundCloud, YouTube, like the free stuff.
Right.
And so that's when I started taking seriously. And then 2022 is when it really started to like pick up. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about that moment in particular. So when you say it started to pick up, what did you do, or what happened, to start that momentum?
It was more of a mindset shift. So, because I was doing the same thing for since 2019, just releasing music, releasing music, releasing music. I think the mind shift, the mindset shift happened in 2022 because I was like, you know what? I haven't done everything to like really take this music thing to the next level. I was sleeping on like content stuff. I was sleeping on like releasing music on a consistent basis. I was releasing like every 4 months. So I was
Mm,
like, let me get into the habit of like being consistent. So it was a mindset shift, and once I got into that bag, it started to pick up. So at the time, I was focusing on TikTok, started dropping content twice a day, just going crazy, going crazy, going crazy, and then it started to pick up when I noticed like the content, the views on the content started to relate to the streams. So I was
mm.
like, oh, okay, there's something over here. So I just kind of like doubled down on that, and then it started to pick up again when I noticed like people started reaching out to like work with me and just collaborate with me and just like work with me on the business front and stuff like that. But yeah,
Dope. What type of content was working on TikTok at the time?
I tried everything. I tried everything. I'm more of like try everything and just see what sticks. So I did like the performance videos. I even did like what do they call it? Like the influencer type of content where I'm like, hey guys, artist with, and it's just like my music. And I did like the taking a cut from the music video, putting the sound over it. I did like, hey, if you like Kendrick, you might like this artist. I did that. I just did everything just to see what sticks. But like I'm glad I did that because that kind of like built the muscle for like consistency, and it built like the muscle for like just coming up with ideas and seeing what I'm comfortable with and like what works. Eventually what I noticed worked is when I at first it was when I mentioned other artists, like bigger established artists,
Hmm.
and people would get like hooked into that, and then they would stay for like what I have next, which was like my music. So I saw that, I played around with that until I became a little more established, and then I started playing around with like performance videos, making them more like aesthetically pleasing. So that kind of worked. I did a little bit of behind the scenes. That never worked for me just because it was, for some reason, it just never resonated with my audience. They were more into like the aesthetics and just like the how everything looks.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's kind of like the content that worked. Another other pieces of content that worked were like the influencer posts. So just coming up with hey guys, if those type of I did a post where it was like artists with dope marketing. I mean artists with whack marketing, but the music is dope. I got that idea from one of my friends, and that video picked up because the hook is just like, you know. But yeah, those are like the types of content that work right now. I'm focused on like the performance videos. I see that starts to pick up recently, but yeah.
Yeah. It's especially in the early days, it's hard to get the behind the scenes stuff to work, right? Because
Yeah.
people aren't super invested into you yet, and it's the behind the scenes stuff. It's typically a little slower. It's hard to make that like pop. It's hard, unless you're
Mhm.
doing something like super interesting behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Um, so let me get clarity on one thing though, because you said that when you mentioned artists that were bigger than you, what clarify for me what that content was. Like you said, you mentioned like bigger artists in it.
Mhm.
What that look like?
Yeah, it came down to the hooks of like the videos. So, for example, like one of the videos that started to pop off like early on, I was like, on the text, I was like promoting this song until I reached the fans of Kendrick, Joey, just like the artists that are like kind of like in the same lane,
Yep.
and because like people are like, okay, like what is this, right? And another thing I used to do is I used to come up with playlists, which was like a thing I did where I was like, yo, if you like this artist, this artist, this artist, check out this playlist. And on the playlist, I would have their music, but at the top of the playlist was my song. So
There you go.
I kind of played around with it and just kind of like, tapped into their audience and trying to bring as much as I can to mine and like awareness to my brand and everything. But like those are like the type of videos I did in terms of just like connecting with their audience.
Yeah. What I like already about this conversation is a lot of artists when things aren't working, like they point fingers in every other direction, right? Like it seems like you took a very honest assessment of yourself and said, "Yeah, no, I wasn't really taking it serious. Let me try this. Let me try more. Let me do more." Are you aware that that's I mean a lot are you aware that that's kind of different amongst like a lot of the artists that I see that they're more typically inclined to like start pointing fingers every which way except
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah. I feel like I said, I think the biggest thing that as artists is like the mindset. It's just like the mindset. Luckily for me, like the content I was consuming during COVID and just like after COVID was like you guys. You guys were on like the Zooms and everything. I was listening to like the Brandman Sean's, the uh who else? I'm missing a bunch of them, like the cheat codes. Shout out to them. Wendy Day, uh the rap juggernaut. I was just consuming a lot of like Earn Your Leisure and those type of guys, Social Proof. Just consuming a bunch of like entrepreneurial music business, Trapidos, another one.
Hmm.
Just those type of guys. And I was consuming that, and over time, like the more you consume those type of stuff, like one thing stands out completely. It's always consistency, 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 consistency. So I was like, you know what? Because I thought I was being consistent because I was like, I was doing the right thing. I was tuning into like the right news channels to get like my information. So like my brand was there. Like I had the look in terms of just like coming up with the cover arts, making sure the videos were good and all that. But I think I was focused too much on making everything look pretty instead of
Hmm.
actually like doing the work. So once I
Hmm.
started doing the work and like being consistent with the work and over time like matching up with like the aesthetics, everything just comes together like very beautiful. So like now I understand like consistency is actually key.
Man, I love to hear you say it because when it just comes from the education platforms, it kind of like, sometimes fall on deaf ears or, it's easy to say, well, you don't make music, so you don't understand. So I love it when an artist says it that's working for. So that's super helpful.
Yeah.
So now, so you're in Canada, but you've been well, you were born in the Congo, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then you lived in South. Tell me a little bit about the history of just your experience in growing up and how you ended up in Canada.
Yeah, I was born in the Congo, DRC. Shout out to them. So I'm Congolese. My whole family's Congolese. We, I lived there for about six years. My father passed away in '03. So after that, it was kind of just like a bit up and down, trying to figure things out. Single mom and everything. After that, she decided to move to South Africa because we had family over there. So we moved to South Africa, grew up over there. Lived there. Just that's basically kind of like my second home. So I feel like and also helped a lot with like the music and just like how I go about things, because over there they kind of like exposed to the West, but they also have like their own culture. And plus I also had my own culture with Congo, so I was like exposed to all these different cultures and just like consuming everything. But it was amazing. I grew up in South Africa, went to school there, uh recorded my first songs, my first everything over there. And then it led up to 20 after I graduated high school. We decided to move to Canada because we also have family over there. And I moved to Canada, and then the pandemic happened, and then I kind of like just slowed down because I was still in like college and everything. Came out of the pandemic, and then that's when I really started to go crazy in terms of just like locking in on the mindset of like consistency and everything.
Yeah, how did you even just adjust to the weather? Because it's cold as shit in Ottawa, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Uh, I don't even know, to be honest. I feel like it helps that for me personally, I stay indoors mostly.
Mhm,
I'm not like a really outdoor guy, so I'm usually indoors. And like I remember like during COVID, it was mostly online, so I didn't have to go out as much.
mhm.
I'm still adjusting. I feel like I probably never get used to it, but yeah, it's cold. It's cold as hell.
Yeah, but I mean I mean it's real, but that was more of a joke. The more serious stuff is just kind of your life experience and how you put that into the music, or how that plays a part, and how it shapes the music. And then in addition to that, obviously there's a huge humanitarian crisis in the
Yeah,
Congo at the moment. Wanted to get your perspective on that, and whether how you, is it something that you put into the music? Is it something that it just, yeah, just I don't even know exactly what the question is, but just kind of like
yeah,
how, maybe even I don't want to turn this into a whole podcast and it start going, super depressing, but maybe give some insight into what's happening there and just kind of how you're feeling about things currently.
yeah. It's been a issue because it's not a new issue. It's been like something we've been um working on, like in terms of just like this this issue. It's been happening for years before I was born, before my mom was born. So it's
Mm,
been an issue that we've been facing for a while. What it is like at the east in the east of Congo, there is like these of a mineral source. It's called coltan, and it's basically used for like phones,
cell phones, yep.
vapes, like Teslas and all those type of things. And what the issue is like these mining companies from like other countries, like Western countries, that they've kind of not bought the land, but they've kind of like enlisted like military rebel groups from like the east of like Rwanda, and not the east, from the east of Congo, from Rwanda and Uganda. M23, that's the name of the rebel group. And they basically invaded like that town, and forcing kids, women, men, children to basically mine the minerals out of like that mine. And super unsafe. It's getting to a point where it's kind of like surreal, like a movie. But
Mm,
6 million, I think it's at 7 million right now, people dead just from
yeah.
that crisis. Um, over a million people displaced, and it's just getting like worse and worse. I feel like this is like the first year I've seen it like more people have like more people know about it, more people have like knowledge about it, because it's
Mhm,
been happening for a while. Like you meet certain people and they're like refugees, especially in the States. There's a bunch of refugees from there just because of like the issue that's happening over there.
mhm,
um but they are like things that are happening now where people are starting to like wake up. We're starting to pressurize the government. We're starting to like come up with petitions. I feel like it's just a matter of time because a lot of us grew up with it, and we're kind of like getting frustrated right now. It's getting to a point where we're like, yo, this needs to change. It's been happening for years and years. But it speaks to a bigger issue with Congo, especially because prior to that, Congo was colonized by the Belgium, and that's a whole nother issue. There was a prime minister that tried to, make sure like this it didn't get to this point. Um, RIP to him. That's Patrice Lumumba. He was like the first elected prime minister of Congo, and he was trying to like do some things, and then unfortunately he got like executed and everything, and that like made it even worse because now there was no leader, so there was just chaos everywhere. But yeah, right now it's getting to a point where people have knowledge about it. People are waking up to it because there's another humanitarian crisis happening in the world. So it's just kind of like a thing where people are getting frustrated. People are getting just sick and tired of being sick and tired. And like in Congo, especially, this like I said, it's not a new issue. We kind of got used to living with it. But
Mm.
right now, I think like people my age, especially the people that grew up with it, the people that had to like um hear their parents complain and all those type of stuff, your family members complain about this stuff. I feel like we're getting to a point where like, you know what, we can actually help and we can actually do things. That's what I really love about like my generation. But it's getting to that point where we're like, yeah, we got to do something about this.
Yeah, no, I definitely, I didn't, don't mean to bring the podcast down, but I think it's an important issue to even the folks that tap into this. If you're not aware, um, there's just a bunch of shady stuff going on in the world where
Yeah,
it's hard to drive enough attention to any one thing because there's so much shady shit happening, and especially since it's in Africa, it
yeah,
typically doesn't see much. um it doesn't get much attention because it's in Africa. but
yeah.
um but yeah, man, that's unfortunate. But so how does that, do you put any, is it more so just kind of the energy and the feeling and the passion, and or do you speak directly to some of that in your music? Is
It's
there?
hard to speak about because I wouldn't know where to start, and
Mm,
I wouldn't know like how to go about it. Um, it's one of those things I hope because like I feel like as more the more I build my platform, the more I can really like tap into it and like really speak about it. Um, but in terms of just like finding a way to address it in music, I don't know if I could like actually find a way to actually speak about it. But I'm trying. I think in like the next project I want to do something maybe like a song title just to bring awareness to it,
mhm.
because I don't know how to go about it. I've been thinking of ways, especially now where it's kind of like getting to a point where it's just out of control right now. So I'm trying to find ways to kind of like incorporate that into the music, or maybe incorporate that to a music video or to a, like, something. But yeah, the biggest thing I'm doing right now is just like trying to use my platform. So like my TikToks, just trying to educate people on Twitter, which has been like great because Twitter, like, everything goes on there. So just making sure I'm highlighting like certain stats, making sure people know about this, people know about that. But yeah, that's what I'm trying to do right now.
Dope, dope. No, that's cool, man. Again, I didn't bring the energy down, but I think more people need to be aware of what's happening in the world. Um,
Yeah.
you,
And not to cut you off, but if anybody wants to help, it's super simple right now, especially because like not a lot of people have money to donate or anything like that. But we're just not buying new iPhones. It's just like secondhand purchases and all those type of things.
oh, dope, dope,
Yeah.
dope. Cool. So you do have kind of like the loner is kind of part of your brand. Like, where is this loner? Were you really a loner growing up at when you started making music at 12 at the lunch table? Were you doing stuff by yourself? Like, what? Where's the loner stuff come from?
Not necessarily. It's the loner is more of like, again, I take it back to mindset and just like how you move about in society. So the loner for me, the idea, it actually surprisingly, I came up with it in 2012 when I started making music. But it was a
Okay.
mindset thing where of like, if society is doing this, I do that. It's all about being in your own lane, about embracing yourself as the individual and just coming up with like your own path. So that's where the idea came to it. And looking back on my life and just like my different experiences, I don't see anybody in like hip hop that has the same experiences as me. So I was like, okay, it's different. I'm this side. Everybody's kind of like that. So it just kind of played into like my whole life, and like it just became a brand.
Dope. No, I think it's part of your brand. However people interpret it, I feel like a lot of people can identify with that. You know,
Mm,
a lot of people feel like they're different. A lot of people feel like, maybe a little out. I'm not saying that you feel like an outcast per se, but I think some people might interpret that as like I do feel a little outcasted. I sympathize with just the concept, right?
mm,
So I think that's super dope. So now you're in Ottawa, and some people
mhm.
will tell you like, oh, you got to be in LA, you got to be in New York. Like, how have you been able to build momentum? I mean, we talked about it, TikTok, but like, did you ever feel that you were at a disadvantage by being in Ottawa? It's like, man, we can't make it from Ottawa. Like a lot of people, there's probably some people in Ottawa didn't even try because they thought that you couldn't do anything from Ottawa.
Yeah. For me, man, like I said, I think for me, I was very confident in like the music, because one thing about music lovers, whether it's country, rock, hip hop, pop, at the end of the day, it's always going to be about the music. It's always going to be about the music. So I just made sure I had a great product, and once I gave the product to the world, I let the music do the talking. When it comes to like location, I think a lot of people do rely heavy on location, because location does help in terms of just like you get like a guaranteed support for a certain like amount of people. Like, yo, I'm from this place. Like, yo, yeah, he's just like me. He's from the neighborhood. Let me go support. But the way I looked at it, it was like, man, there's probably a bunch of other people all around the world that are not in like big name cities that love hip hop just as much as me, that love rap just as much as me, that would probably tap in. So
Mm-hmm.
the way I did it, man, and that's another thing, that's why I was tapping into like the audience of like the bigger guys, because I was like, they already love this type of music. Let me just like feed them the music, like the location and everything. They could come after. So I was very intentional about that. That's why I attached the loner brand to it, so people can already kind of like uh have that loner like idea of what loner means, and like that brand, and like the music, and then the location, the story, because my story is like, yo, Congo, South Africa, Canada. So I wanted people to tap into like the music and the loner idea first before they tap into that, so they don't get like, so it doesn't go all over the place, because it's kind of like an all over the place story. But yeah, I always say like the music is always going to speak for itself.
So, and I was on Spotify, and I saw that LA was like the most listened to city on Spotify. You coming out here to do a show anytime? What's up? We do.
Soon. Be in New York soon.
Okay.
Well, I'm planning. I'm doing my album, my first like debut album next year. So I'm hopefully I get to do like a tour around it. But I also want to be like very like just like I want to be more smart in terms of just like the touring decisions, like how I can go about it, because it's like a whole other business. It's not like these different businesses within a business. So I
Yeah.
just have to be like smart about it and just like go about it in like a different way.
Yeah, I always tell artists like if you are pursuing music, you're essentially, especially if you're running, if you look at it as a label, even if you're a standalone artist, like it's kind of five businesses in one, right? So you have, the music, you got the touring side, the publishing, the merchandise. Have you done much with merch yet?
Yeah. I have a really good idea for like the merch. I mean, I'll give you like a little spill about it, but like in terms of like the whole merch idea, so I'm gonna be tapping into like, in terms of just like making merch with having my face on it. I think I'm gonna tap into like the brand idea of like the loner, and just kind of
Yeah,
like do that.
yeah,
But yeah, but that's what I really want to do. I want to tap into like that, and not really attach my face and like my facial identity to it, and kind of
mhm,
just like tap into the brand, and that would be considered merch, but it's really its own brand, you know?
For sure. I definitely think that that's the better approach. I mean, I've seen some artists sell merch with their face on it, um, but they typically have like more women audience. Like if there's not there's I mean there are some guys that will wear a face of the artist that they like, but I think
Yeah.
artists have been more the artists have been more successful taking the approach that you're talking about, like having kind of a separate brand, loner
Hmm.
brand that coincides with the music. Like everything that you're doing should be telling your story consistently, right? Obviously, you're
Yeah.
telling your story through your music. You're telling your story like literally on this podcast right now, and likewise through the merch, like it should be a consistent story that you're telling through your merch as well. So I think you're thinking about it the right way for sure. so
Thank you.
so so currently I would never ask you how much money you make, but I do like to ask artists like how the revenue breaks down percentage wise, like what percentage is streaming and what percentage is merch and what percentage is touring. Like, so for you, how does the revenue break down, if you're comfortable answering
Yeah.
that?
No, for sure. I don't know like the exact percentages, but I'm gonna guess. Touring, we don't have any shows right now, so that's on zero. Um, Streaming is probably, so I have two different ways I go about it. I have like a another thing about merch. I have like I sell like zips. It's an idea I got from a rapper called Zay Lewis. Shout out to him. But it's like zips, and zips are $10 a pop. And in the zip it contains like extra behind the scenes footage, documentary style, alternative cover art, alternative music video, engineer's cut. um what else does it have?
A zip
Acapella,
a zip
30.
folder. So this is a zip folder that you just did you
Yeah, so I have a bunch of them, like a zip folder that I sell on my merch site alongside with the merch. So
uh-huh.
I sell that, and people buy it, which is crazy. So that I have that for about $8. I only have three out right now, but I have one for Loner World, another song called Who, and another song called was the confetti. So I have those three out, and it's $8 each. And people buy it. They play around with the acapellas. They make their own beats and add my acapellas to it. So that alongside the merch would probably come down to like, if it's 100% pie, and let's say streaming is 50%, because that's probably like the most. I would say
Mhm.
merch would come down to like 30, and then 20% would go to like the vinyls.
Got you. And then I'm sure your publishing is something in there too. It's probably maybe a smaller percentage
Yeah, yeah,
if
yeah, yeah.
you're hopefully you're collecting your publishing. I know it may not be crazy right now, but you definitely want to set things up so that you're collecting your
Yeah,
publishing. Um, dope. Let again. Let's. Because I want to cut this probably separately because I think the zip folder. I don't know if I've ever heard of anybody just like selling zip folders from from their website. Explain once again, like what all do you include in the zip folder?
yeah, everything but the instrumental. So everything surrounding the song. So I have the cover art. I
Hmm.
have handwritten lyrics. I just like scan them, and then I put them up alongside that. I have like the alternative cover art. So when I do my cover arts, I have a bunch of them. So I just like put them up also. I have like, if I did a music video for the song, I have an alternative music video. I have documentary style behind the scenes because I record most of the times when I record the songs. So I have like footage of me recording the songs. I
Hmm.
cut that up, make it like nice and pretty. I have acapellas, so the dirty acapella, the clean acapella, and just like the regular acapella. Um, and then I have the mixed vocals and just like the raw, like just raw vocals.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I have that, and I think that's it. And then yeah, I have that for only three songs right now. And then I just play around. So it's $8 each. And then I tell I seen a lot of producers buy it. So producers and just like regular fans, they just wanna, they have want to have a piece of that. So yeah, it's called zips, loner zips. I call them loner zips.
Dope.
Um, I got it from I got the idea from another rapper. His name is Zay Lewis. He has zips too. I think I don't know how he goes about his, but I think he does like behind the scenes and like another song. I'm not sure, but I got the idea from him. So shout out to him. Shout out to him.
That's super dope. Yeah, I feel like artists can get a lot more creative with what they sell. I had a artist on this podcast. Her name is Queen Herbie. She does really well. She was selling chewed gum. She was selling chewed gum to her fans. Like she basically chewed gum. She like shellacked it or whatever, and then sold it at $100 a pop.
Oh my
And
god.
her fans are rocking with it. You know, I think it really just comes down to having a great understanding of who your fans are. Like if you really understand your audience, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you can come up with some much more creative experiences, some cooler experiences, just more fun things to do as long as you really understand like who's rocking with you, right?
Yeah.
So for you, obviously it's people that you know that just like the music, and you know maybe that can relate to the loner theme. But like, is there anything that you feel like you know about your fans that you know, just like some deeper insight?
Yeah. I think I have a Discord group, and in my Discord group, I tailor it mainly to like independent artists and upcoming producers. So
Hmm.
what I've noticed about my fans is that most of them are tapped into like music. Either they artists or they are producers or they just are really like big music lovers, and then the rest are just like people that like really enjoy music and stuff like that. But like those three, I've noticed a lot of them in my Discord, so I started setting up like beat battles for producers, and we would have it like every 2 weeks on Saturdays, and just have them come play their beats, and then I'd have like producers come in and guest judge. I had Stoic, Bailey Daniel, just like YouTube producers that are really big in the space, and I'll have them come through, guest judge, and just build that up. I noticed like fans would just come and watch, which was also dope. And they would come and connect with each other, create songs together, and like they would build like their own community within a community. And then, but that's what I figured. And another thing I also noticed is like the fashion guys also really tap into the music. So I'll notice people sending me like their fit pick or like their fit of the day, and they'll have my song playing. I noticed that, and just like the skateboard people too, which is really dope. But yeah, I just noticed like the same person kept coming up in like a different font. So I was like, oh, okay.
Dope.
Okay. Yeah.
Dope. I think you're cracking another code with that, because what I tell artists, kind of like a cheat code, is if you can authentically tap into communities that already exist. Because let's just say if you were a vegan, for example, right? Let's say if you're a vegan, like people that are vegan, they are in the same Facebook groups, they follow the same Instagram influencers. Like there's already an infrastructure for communication to exist within that community. So if there was like a vegan that really rocked with your music, that person's going to share that within that community, and it's going to spread like wildfire, right? So
Mm,
you seeing that people in the fashion world or skaters, like, because skaters are connected.
mm,
So once skaters start to learn about your music and they think it's dope, it's going to spread a lot faster because that infrastructure already exists for that
yeah.
communication to go super fast, right? So I tell artists, you can't fake it, right? Like you can't fake being part of a community. But if you're already authentically a part of it, or if you can authentically tap into one of these communities, your music's gonna spread a lot faster.
Mm. I agree. I agree. I agree.
So that's super dope, man. Though I'm excited to jump more into the music, because I've only heard I probably checked out maybe like 6 or 7 songs, but it wasn't what I thought it. I don't know. I didn't really have an expectation, but like you rap, like you could, you know what I'm saying? Like it's not, because I'll be honest, as I've gotten older, I pay attention to what's happening, but when I listen to music, I go back to early
So,
2000s. You know what I'm saying? That's that.
yeah.
Every once in a while, I add something new to my playlist or whatnot. You know, but there's so much music that comes out these days. Like
Hmm.
it's hard to get invested in like newer artists. So like the newer artists that I listen to a lot is like very very few.
Hmm.
Um, but that's just me being an old head. But so what's the plan, man? It sounds like you. what I admire is that it seems like you got a shitload of stuff going on. Obviously, you're dropping music, you're preparing for an album. It seems like your Discord is rocking. You're keeping your socials active. What does the day look like for you? Like,
A day. Oh,
yeah, you wake up and what happens?
man, just gratitude first.
Mm,
And I dive into just like what I have to do for the day. So I use like Notion a lot just to kind of like organize everything, just to keep me like consistent. Because if I don't have like something organized, I just kind of like fall off. But I have a Notion and like a to-do list that kind of like helps. The main thing I usually do is I usually plan out. I'll come up with content ideas. So I usually have content ideas. I could give you like a day in the life of like my content day. Yeah. So I usually have content ideas that I'm supposed to like plan. I usually have one content day a week just to kind of like keep myself, have bulk content ready to go, especially because I don't feel like recording every day.
hmm
But I have like the content ideas that I have to do. So I usually start either after like, you shower and everything. I get into like the content and just make sure I start off with like the easiest one, so it's probably gonna be like my phone here, just playing some music or like rapping along. But I'll do all the content ideas that I have throughout the day, and once that is done, it's music time. If I don't have any, because I don't like forcing like the music and like recording.
hmm
If I'm not like if I don't feel like recording music or doing anything like that, I usually tap into like the Discord or just go live or just try and engage with the people every day. Because most of my content, I don't really go on social media like that. Most of my content is already like scheduled, so I don't really have to interact like that. I have days that I plan where I reply to comments and stuff like that, but I'm not like consistently on like social media, just making sure like, oh, did I reply to this? Okay, but I have those type of days, and then other days like today, if I have a meeting with my manager or something, that would probably be like the first order of business, and then get into like making sure like the merch side is good, making sure I didn't miss any emails, and then I usually get into the music and come up with ideas, create it, and then it'll go down to just at the end of the day, I like to like wind down. So it's probably gonna be like either going and looking for content ideas or tapping into like a podcast just to kind of like get my knowledge up and stuff like that. But yeah, it's pretty chilled, especially like because it's very like premeditated. I already know what I'm gonna do once I wake up, so I just need to get to it.
That's dope. You're the first artist that I've ever heard say they use Notion. Like Notion is like stuff that we use. We use it at Two Lost, and we use it, in corporate environments. But I think I'm always preaching structure because I know artists are like a lot of times just all over the place. Like it's super important to have some structure to your day because if you
Hmm.
don't, let days go past and you're not efficient, you don't really get shit done. Like
Yeah,
you don't know what you're doing every day, and then eventually the day passes and you didn't get nothing done because there's no
sure.
like organization. But I understand that it's tough for some artists to be a little bit more structured, and they rely on whether a manager or a third party to kind of give them that structure. It's dope that
Yeah,
it's dope that you seem to have that and understand the importance of it, without somebody having to like bark at you all day.
yeah.
You know.
It's important. It's important because like my manager also has a job, so I can't just be relying on him, 24/7. So I gotta have like some sort of like control of like what I do and like how I do it and execute it. Another thing I forgot to mention is I usually have like the goals of like the month and the week and just kind of like work towards them. That kind of like keeps me in check. But yeah, that's kind of like what I do.
That's dope, man. I love everything I've heard in this episode, man. I love the maturity. I love the organization. I love the talent. The experiences that you have that kind of drive you to be able to do what you're doing. The knowledge of the business and kind of how you're approaching it. I think that I can't even give you any suggestions, man. I think you just got to keep doing what you're doing. Continue to start your day with gratitude. Make sure you're doing some self-care so that you can keep up because it's a long road and you got a lot of things that you have to do. And a lot of people fall off just because they get frustrated or tired or they can't do all the, keep up with
Yeah.
all the social media requirements and, being consistent with the music. So yeah, man, I think you're doing pretty much everything right, man. Congrats to you, and I hope you have continued success.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Just give us one. So since not everybody that comes on this podcast is a Two Lost artist, but if you can, we talked about it a little off before we jumped on, but just when you started with Two Lost and your experience with Two Lost thus far before we wrap this up.
So I started with Two Lost in January of this year. I came from DistroKid, so that was like a big, big switch. I'll say like the biggest thing for me that I really loved about Two Lost is just like being connected to like the people behind it, being connected to like a Damien or like a Courtney or like a Jake or anything like that. Just being connected and making sure I know who's like responsible for getting my music to DSPs. So that was one of like the biggest things. Another thing is just like Two Lost does really help in terms of just like perspective of like what it means to be independent. Um, they have a bunch of like resources in terms of just like the office hours. Make sure you go check tap into that.
I'll be starting that again. So what he's referring to is I'll be starting that weekly like next year. So office hours will be an opportunity, and you don't even need to be a Two Lost artist to tap into
Yeah,
weekly live sessions where people will be able to ask questions. Whether it's merch related, publishing, and then I'll bring guests similar to what I was doing with the Music Entrepreneur Club. We're gonna bring that to
yeah,
Two Lost so that artists have an additional resource because artists do feel lost and they need some more guidance and support. So I appreciate you mentioning that. We're gonna bring it back in the new year for sure.
yeah. But yeah, it's just a worldwide music distribution. They deliver your music to. I think you guys are like the most. You deliver to the most stores, right?
Yeah, yep, over
Yeah,
yep,
I read.
400 at this point. But all right, man,
Yeah,
you don't
so
you can it's gonna turn into a Two Lost commercial. I didn't mean for it to sound like that, but we appreciate you, man, because we love working with dope artists. We want to continue to get the word out. The last thing that I will mention about Two Lost, because we just launched a contest with T-Pain called Collab for the Crown. So we are committed to giving out $100,000 to independent artists that win these contests. We're going to host 3 contests. So each contest has a prize pool of $33,000. All you have to
ooh,
do is all you have to do is collaborate with another artist. And T Pain has requested that the song you have to create an original song, and T-Pain has requested that the song have like an automotive or racing theme. So if there's anybody, I mean, you're eligible to participate too. It doesn't matter how, as long as you're independent, you can rock. You can rock with. I encourage all artists, no matter how big you are. A lot of artists don't want to participate in contests because they think they're too big for it, or if they don't win, they think it looks bad. At the end of the day, only there's going to be 3 winners. One's going to win 20, one's going to win 8, one's going to win 5,000. But like everybody can pick up some new fans through this contest.
hmm,
Essentially, that's really what it's about. If you earned 10 new fans through this contest, that's 10 people that might buy a hoodie every year from you. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
everybody can win and get some exposure. So I'm hopefully that's how they're looking at it, as opposed to, I'm too big for this contest or anything like that. You know what I mean? So we're just hoping to have a lot of fun with it. We're providing the opportunity, and I look forward to seeing the entries because typically when I run these contests, some really talented artists out there, man, and I always find some dope new artists that I become fans of personally. So
fire, fire.
cool. Well, cool, man. I appreciate you joining the Independent Living Podcast. Once again, it's brought to you by Two Lost. Are there any last words, or you can either last words of encouragement and then let people know where they can find you on socials?
Yeah, I'm just gonna tell everyone, a lot of people right now are probably listening to this in their car or just at home or just like on the bus actually. But just keep going, consistency is key. I know that sounds cliche, but trust, you just gotta I'll say get like a 3 month goal of just being consistent and just build that muscle and just keep going. Find out what your strength is. Are you a content guy or are you like a video guy or whatever type of person you are, just be consistent with it and keep releasing music. Always make sure the music is always going to speak for itself. So tap into the music, and be consistent with it. My name is Jav. I'm on Instagram at the Lonely Jav, Twitter the Lonely Jav, YouTube just Jav, Spotify just Jav, Apple Music just Jav. What else? TheLonelyJav.com. Make sure you tap in with the merch. And shout out to Damien for having me, man.
Oh, my pleasure. Definitely tap into Jeff's music, man. He's skillful. Last question, if you could. This is my. I promise this is gonna be my last question but I forgot this one because I just want to know this personally. If you could be like, boom, I could collab with anybody in the world right now. Who would you collab with?
100
Ah, there you go. There you
easy,
go.
yeah.
I know
But
Lupe. I know Lupe rapped over his flute the
oh
other
yeah,
day. You gonna attempt that? You gonna attempt a flute
nah,
rap?
nah. I might sample it. But nah, I need some drums.
For sure. All right, man. Again, I appreciate it. I'll follow up with you after this, man. We definitely got to stay connected. If you need anything, hit me up anytime. I'll make sure you got my number, man. Talk to
For
you
sure.
soon, man. All right.
All right.
Peace.